Hey guys, it's Lord of Fish. So we're back for Game 5 of our Modern League. It's been a while, I was distracted with quite a few videos. Now, this is supposed to be Game 4, but I had some issues with that file, so we don't get to see it. It was a 1-2 versus Is It Murktide, just in case any of you are curious. So this game, we play against a mono-red prison deck. Super interesting, and I haven't played against prison in a while, so I don't have any comments. But with that said, let's just get straight into the video. Alright, so this game will be on the draw. In this opening hand, I figured it was okay. We have Fiery Islet to draw into some cards if we run out of resources, Tide Shaper to deal with any lands, Lord of Atlantis just to pump our entire team, and then Sweetloon for extra card draw, protection, just a lot of things. So overall, this hand's pretty good to keep in the blind. So our opponent plays Chalice of the Void on 1. So this is pretty annoying, but not really. I mean, Tide Shaper, it isn't the worst thing to not be able to cast. We still have a lot of things we can do. So we passed a turn here because holding up Vodalian Hexcatcher is nice. And here, our opponent decides to play Squee. Now, I am thinking, okay, so I think I'll settle to this. But I made a mistake. So I was thinking, is this a goblin deck with Chalice of the Void in it for some reason? And I wasn't thinking necessarily this is mono red prison. So I settled to this and pitched the Sweetloon, but I should have pitched the Tide Shaper because Tide Shaper is uncastable right now. So that was a big misplay. I pitched Sweetloon because I figured Tide Shaper for Island Walk and Lord of Atlantis to get Island Walk, since Goblin tends to make quite a few tokens. But yeah, that was wrong thinking. Don't repeat that. So here I decided to play out the Mutavault, and we can play Lord of Atlantis and just swing for 2. So right now we have 2 lords out. Our board state looks fine. The Chalice on 1 is annoying, but it's okay. And here our opponent decides to play out Seasoned Pyromancer. So they get some good, card selection. And they get 2 bodies with it. And those 2 bodies are annoying because I really can't attack with Vodalian Hexcatcher actually, I really can't attack with Lord of Atlantis either. I can attack with Lord of Atlantis, but it'll only trade with a token in the Seasoned Pyromancer, which just doesn't seem worth it. And I don't want to activate Mutavault here, since holding up Subtlety is nice. So right now, I was like, okay, I'm gonna pass, hold up Subtlety, that's gonna be good. Our opponent just passes through, so I said, alright, gotta get some damage through, let's just cast a Subtlety. No legal targets. We draw an island, that's fine, but we have nothing to do, so might as well crack the Fiery Islet, we have plenty of mana. We draw Merfolk Trickster, which means we can either attack with Mutavault to get in for some damage, or hold up Merfolk Trickster. And I feel like if we hold up Merfolk Trickster, tap down a token or a Seasoned Pyromancer on their end step, we'll just be able to we'll be able to swing in for more damage next turn. And I don't think it's worth it to just activate a Mutavault when we can apply that pressure with the Merfolk Trickster. So they play Gone and bounce the Lord of Atlantis. Now they bounce Lord because that just makes sense. I mean, you don't want to bounce Vodalian Hexcatcher because I can replay it. Don't want to bounce Subtlety since I could stall you for a little, so makes sense. So they play Chandra out here. Now we could sacrifice Vodalian Hexcatcher and Mutavault just to deal with the Chandra, but that does not seem worth it. So we'll just let them kill the Subtlety. And we also can deal with the Chandra in a fairly quick clock, so it's just worth it to let the Chandra sit. On their end step, I'll play Merfolk Trickster, and I decide to tap down the Seasoned Pyromancer just because it has a higher power and toughness. So we don't draw anything good, just a basic land. But I'll play out Lord of Atlantis, and then the thing is, I can go send both my creatures after Chandra, kill off 2 of the tokens. And the Chandra will live, but I don't think it's worth it to send my Vodalian Hexcatcher in there just to guarantee a kill with the Chandra, because if I guarantee kill with the Chandra, they're gonna trade the 2 tokens with the Vodalian Hexcatcher, and that's not worth it. I'd rather leave the Chandra around for one more turn. So they uptick the Chandra, but they only get a mountain, and I'm fine taking the 2 life. They activate Den of the Bugbear. I don't know why they activated this. In my opinion, they need to be on a more defensive plan, but whatever. So here, I was debating whether I should block the token or not, but it's just probably a better idea to block it since, you know, even though they could have, like, something, I think it's worth it just to save the life. So we draw Force Negation here, so I could activate Mutavault or play out Force Negation, but I rather activate Mutavault since I can still pitch the Tide Shaper to the Force Negation, and we are getting in for a hefty amount of damage right here. And then they conceded, so overall, that was a pretty good game for us. And before I say time for sideboarding, I just want to say this is a much faster paced editing type of style, so tell me if you like it, tell me if you don't like it. Also, I worked on the layout for the gameplay. Give me your critiques, I'd love to hear them. And now we can move to sideboarding. Alright, so we're back for sideboarding, and I decided to cut 2 Tide Shapers since it seems pretty weak versus Chalice of the Void, yet I still left 2 in there since it's a pretty good way to deal with some of their creature lands. I decided to trim on 1 subtlety. Now I know most of their threats are creatures or planeswalkers, yet the big things we need to deal with are some of the artifacts and enchantments. The biggest thing I'm concerned about is them dropping Ensnaring Bridge, and subtlety will not help us then. Next, I decided to bring in 2 Spell Pierces, since Spell Pierce is a really efficient way to deal with any of their planeswalkers, artifacts, and enchantments, just good all around, honestly. Next, I brought in a Brazen Borrower just in case I need to bounce an Ensnaring Bridge or a planeswalker or any real threat. And with that said, let's get into game 2. Alright, so this opening hand, it's pretty good. I mean, it's not the best, but we have some pretty good interaction between Vodalian Hexcatcher and Force Negation. Spreading Seas is perfect to deal with any creature lands, and Silvergill Adept is just great for card advantage. So here, we'll just pass the turn. And our opponent plays out their second land drop for the turn, and then they go for a Ratchet Bomb. Now our hand has 3 2-drops, and Force Negation is a counterspell, and I'm thinking, Ratchet Bomb is a big threat, I have to counter this, and I decided to actually pitch Silvergill Adept. The reasoning is, Spreading Seas needs to deal with that Den of the Bugbear. Next, Vodalian Hexcatcher is really good counter magic for the future, and if I hold up Vodalian Hexcatcher here, play her on the end step, what am I going to do next turn? Play Swayloon? Or worry I won't the best play would be to play out Swayloon, but I'd have that Silvergill Adept in hand, and I might not be able to cast it in the future. So you gotta think about that. Future turns, like, pre-deciding. So they kill the Vodalian Hexcatcher, nothing we can do about that. We draw another land, and it's time to play out Swayloon. I mean, you could Spreading Seas the Den, but getting Swayloon out as in this scenario early as you can is good, but they Fury it, so we don't get to keep the Swayloon. If we got to untap a Swayloon, that would be big, but doesn't happen. Still, we do have the Spreading Seas for more card advantage, and now our opponent only has 1 card in hand, which means, well, 2 cards in hand now, but we're kind of even, and we still have a very good chance of getting back in this game. We draw Master of the Pearl Trident, that's just beautiful. So we'll play out Spreading Seas, deal with the creature land. Off of that, we draw Merfolk Trickster, which is just amazing, flash it in on our opponent's end step, so I decided to pass through here. And our opponent plays another Ratchet Bomb, so you'd think that'd be a big threat, but we actually have that under control thanks to the Otawara. So I let our opponent attack here. But on their end step, we'll be able to cast Merfolk Trickster, tap down the token, and then once that's tapped down, we can start freely attacking our opponent with the not with Master, but with the Mutavault, and, well, we drew Hexcatcher, so now you kind of just want to play Master the Pearl Trident in the first main, and then attack with the Merfolk Trickster, and hold up Vodalian Hexcatcher. The Ratchet Bomb only has 1 charge counter on it, The Ratchet Bomb only has 1 charge counter on it, so it's not that big of a deal right now. We get to swing for 3, and that is looking good. Our opponent plays Chalice of the Void on 2, so in response, you gotta play out Vidalian Hexcatcher since that will get countered. Now, whether you counter the Chalice of the Void or not is a really hard decision, because all you need to do is sacrifice a Merfolk Trickster. But we don't have any 2-drops in hand right now, and we have a pretty good board state, and our opponent only has 1 card left in hand. Do we really need to sacrifice this Merfolk Trickster? And I thought, you know what? Chalice of the Void you can resolve, it's not that big of a deal. Our opponent just passes through from here. We get to hold, so right now, Swayloon, amazing draw, but we got to hold up that Otawara, since if we don't, they'll tick up Ratchet Bomb on our end step and then completely destroy our board, and we cannot let that happen. So I just attack with both creatures with Island Block, and our opponent takes it. So on our end step, they activate Ratchet Bomb, but we bounce it with Otawara. And I'd just like to make one remark about that, and I'd like to say Ratchet Bomb does not have it going on. If you get the reference, you get it. If you don't, you don't. Alright, so they play a Chandra, and we can sacrifice 1 Merfolk to deal with this. So this is basically saying, would you like to choose which card gets killed, or would you like the opponent to choose which creature gets killed? So I say, alright, we'll sacrifice a Merfolk Trickster to deal with this Planeswalker. I also want to attack my opponent as much as possible, and having to deal with the Chandra is just annoying. So we draw another Otawara. So here's the interesting thing. We could attack with Mutavault, and then the Vidalian Hexcatcher to get in for a good amount of damage, or we could play Swayloon. But I decided, you know what? Our opponent didn't even play out Ratchet Bomb that turn. It's not a big of a threat anymore. I'll play Otawara as a land, cast Swayloon, and also attack with the Mutavault. So that was the plan. And here we cast the Swayloon, and pass through to our opponent. And then I believe they conceded from here. So overall, that was a really good game for us. Worked out well, and I'll see you next time.